Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Land and Home Show. Today we're talking about 5 years of land trends here in the Bluegrass region, along with what we might see in the future. Hi, I'm Stephen J.B. Davis, your land specialist and residential realtor here in Central Kentucky and beyond. I'm sitting in a brand new, gorgeous office for the Christie's Bluegrass location. I think we moved in like a month ago. I really like this room. It's got horses everywhere, and you probably can't see much of the table, but the table is like very old and fine, and I don't know, it reminds me of like Anchorman when he says books of mahogany. It's a very cool, fancy room. So I really wanted to film in here because I'm tired of filming around my property and in my house. So I thought it'd be a good place to go. Secondly, this particular episode is brought to you by a new microphone. My very good friend, Philippe Tuyot, gave this to me over, what was it? Not Memorial Day weekend, I always mix them up. Labor Day weekend when I visited him in Alabama. Philippe and I have been friends for many years, and you've probably seen him on my Instagram. We've gone fishing together and hunting, and I think I've got a YouTube video of us making dove poppers from a dove hunt that we had maybe 2 years ago now. But Philippe gave this to me just because he's cool and that kind of dude. And he's like, frankly, I'm never starting a podcast, so you should have it. I really like the sound of it. I like the look of it. If you ever need a wealth manager, Philippe is your guy. Philippe has a very long and trusted history, even as a young man of 35 years. I think we're only a year apart. He got to start at Wells Fargo. He has managed a lot of money and has done it very well. Now he's at ACU Wealth Advisors, based out of Alabama, but services, I believe, into the Pensacola realm of things. I'm not super familiar with the geography down there, so don't hate me or at me if I've got some of the nearby cities wrong, but Alabama and Florida are generally where Philippe can help you, and maybe more. So look him up. Philippe, very French sounding. Tuyot, also very French sounding, is his last name, and ACU Wealth Advisors. I'm not used to really doing shout outs, and no, he did not pay for this, but I thought that he deserved a shout out. Okay, so today is all about this land trends. Like, look at this. I finally have the print copy of the 5-year Bluegrass Land Report. So I'm stoked. I've already started sending out this limited print edition to people in my world and people that I hope will be in my world real estate wise. It's robust. It's super detailed. It feels really, really nice. And it's very informative. And I was thinking, well, I don't have unlimited resources. If I did, I probably wouldn't be working. So I did not print thousands of these, but I thought people deserve to know some amount of what is going on here since COVID has happened, and where we are likely headed. I can't tell the future. I don't know the good or bad things that are to come, but based on the data, what is the trajectory of all of this information, and ultimately what is the trajectory of the land market? And so that's what this is. That's what this report is. Today, I'm going to do my best to truncate that report verbally to you, and thankfully I've got a visual aid to help me because I'm still going through a lot of this data to be able to understand and answer even like deeper questions and deeper information. So some of it is new to me. Some of it I feel like I have my head around, but the other thing to know is that I will be making, I'm actually staring at it. I've got like an 8-page booklet that will be like the snapshot version of this that I will print a lot more of because it'll be a lot less money. This is 32 pages long. So it'll be a quarter of the size, and actually smaller. It'll be like in a square. I'll make it available electronically, and I will be sending it to more of a wide audience in print, and just something to have on hand and something for people to sort of sink their teeth into about the general, like the broad strokes of this land market. Okay, so that's the spiel. That's what we're talking about today. I want to start. How do I make this full screen? Like I said, I have visual aids and I'm going to need them. So the first big thing is just that this is information. It's, there's bound to be some, I'm a human, like there's bound to be some mistake. I have filtered and checked and rechecked for really large glaring errors. But ultimately I'm not perfect. So there's probably some sort of mistake. And even though I've proofread this report dozens of times, I already found a typo. I'm like very annoyed about. Thankfully, it's nothing huge, and it's probably a little subjective. But all in all, with this being done by a human and susceptible to error, don't go out and take this information and say that Steven told you to go do something that I didn't tell you to do. In fact, this information is to inform you. It's to help you generally understand what's going on, but what your situation is versus the person sitting next to you versus someone 100 miles away, all of your situations will be different. And so your decision tree is going to look different about how you choose to spend your money or how you choose to liquidate whatever real estate assets that you do have. Like, you've got to talk to your financial advisors, and if not me, talk to your real estate advisors in whatever state you're in, whatever part of Kentucky you're in, before you really start to take action. So don't just go out and take action based on this. This is a starting point that you can then filter your life through this information as opposed to passing this information through your life in order to make decisions later. Hopefully that makes sense. Then the basis of all of this information, whether it's the full report or the snapshot, this is coming from 16 counties. And I chose the 16 counties based on the economic bias that they have to Lexington. Like, there's a greater Louisville area, right? But that's all related to Louisville. And there is an economic area of Lexington, like a greater Lexington area. So these counties have a bias toward the Lexington side of things. They have also been chosen because all this data came from the MLS. So this data is all based on information from the MLS. So I've chosen these counties because Bluegrass Realtors owns this information. Certainly I could go and get Louisville data because we have data shares and things like that between the associations, but I'm sticking to Lexington area / the Lexington, I guess it's not the Lexington anymore, the Bluegrass Association of Realtors, Bluegrass Realtors, information that we have access to. And then lastly, this is raw land. This is stuff without houses. That's pretty much how I've done all this. So if you go back in my YouTube, you'll find land values playlists that talk about the sales that have happened in a year's time. We're looking at 5 years now. I think I've done 4 years worth of videos, but we're looking at basically everything that's happened since COVID in these 16 counties in order to help you have a starting point for whatever decisions you may be considering in your real estate world, life, existence, whatever. So takeaways. There are 3 key things. If you don't get anything else from this video, there are 3 major things, which I know them, but I still want to look at my visual aid here. So the first thing is just, there's a lot of promise here. There's so much going on in Kentucky, and even though our nation is experiencing all sorts of like economic uncertainty, and there's just a lot happening from an economic and political standpoint, Kentucky is kind of in growth mode. And the Bluegrass is not an exception to that idea. I mean, we're adding jobs. Big giant companies are pouring money into Central Kentucky for manufacturing and industry, and those are really the main two things. But that means more people are moving here. There's more of a demand to be here than there ever has been, and the Bluegrass region is definitely getting the benefits of that. We're getting demand, we're getting higher prices, which is kind of the second big takeaway. So first is that there's promise. There's a lot of reason to want to be here. Secondly is that across every market segment, there's appreciation in the last 5 years, and continues to be appreciation. So land is getting more expensive. And depending on if you're a buyer or seller, that may be exciting to you or kind of devastating. And then lastly is that just bringing those two ideas together, the main causes of why people want to be here and why the prices are going up, and why there's promise and investment value here, comes down to three main ideas. One is development pressure. As more people need to live here, we need to build more houses. Two is agricultural cycles. So once upon a time, for instance, we were very heavy in the tobacco world, and then the Burley Tobacco Program and did a lot of tobacco operations to other operations, such as horses. A lot of the horse farms in Lexington used to be big tobacco farms. And even before the horses, there was a lot of cattle here. So agricultural market cycles are a big part of what influences some of the data that we'll get into. And then the third contributor is just this post-COVID like cultural shift, or I don't know what you want to call it, but this desire for a lot of people and a new ability because of remote work to live in a more rural place, to live with a deeper connection to land, to produce your own food, to can, to pickle, to having a few goats, all of those types of things. Like all of those things that you've heard me talk about for years, especially where the 5 to 20 acre market segment is, more and more people want that. And so those are the three main ideas really about this report. And then the three things that I most immediately said are the things that are most influencing pricing: development pressure, ag cycles, and cultural shifts to wanting more of a rural lifestyle. Takeaways. So let's look at the market segments really quickly. I say quickly, but this video is probably going to be 25 minutes long. If we talk about the 5 to 20 acre market segment over the last 5 years, it is our market. Without it, I don't even know that I can make this video. It represents over 50% of all of the sales in the last 5 years for land. 5 to 20 acres. Like when I've been saying for years, like this is what people want. This is the most competitive. There's the most demand here. And the data reflects that. Over half, the majority of sales in 5 years of land falls into this 5 to 20 acre category. It also has appreciated a lot. 69% appreciation in price per acre for this market segment. Like that's enormous. And then of course, in this market segment, you're not talking about heavy agricultural purposes. You're talking about people living. So what's influencing this particular market segment the most is just a demand to live a more rural lifestyle, a quieter lifestyle, a more small town lifestyle, that type of thing. That is the 5 to 20 acre market segment. I don't know why I can't say that. And I've written it so many times over the past few weeks, creating all these materials. If we move to the stable middle market is what I'm calling it. This is like the 20 to 50 acre world. Things change up a little bit. It has more predictable price like stuff. Things are more consistent between counties, things are more consistent between like 30 acres and 40 acres. It's not like this. It's not a very volatile portion of the market. Rather, it is something that you can kind of count on. It has seen a little less growth in the price per acre, but in 5 years, it's risen 54%, which is not insignificant. It's really where like the affordability, so like the price per acre, and the usefulness, the utility of land come together. So if you're thinking about doing horse farming, I'm surrounded by all these horses, or you want to produce a little bit of corn, or you want to produce a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you want to have pigs, whatever. This 20 to 50 acre space is where like, okay, I get the lifestyle I want. I may not be farming for 100% to put the food in my mouth, but I can make some extra income. So utility, lifestyle, and price, like they all mix together in this 20 to 50 acre portion of the market. And it accounts for about 22% of all of the sales in the last 5 years. So if 5 to 20 was over half, again, like the overwhelming majority, this actually comes in third place. 22% of all of the 20 to 50 acre sales is what we can look to for the last 5 years. And then there's a premium segment, 50 acres and more. I think in the past I've done 50 acres and more, and then sometimes I've capped it at 100 acres, so 50 to 100. But I've just done an open 50 to 50 acres, like what happens after that, because we don't have a whole lot of Texas-sized land. There's not 9,000 acres being sold on any regular basis. And if it is, most of it is in Eastern Kentucky, which begs a whole lot of other questions around the utility of land and all these other things. So 50 plus acres is the premium segment. And this is where you start to, you get all things together. You have, production scale, agriculture happening beyond this 50 acre mark. You have people who want a lifestyle. You have wealthy people who want recreation. So they're raising horses, but they've got 112 acres in Kentucky as a second or third home. And then you have people who are investing they're purchasing 100 acres, 200 acres, having someone else farm it because they're going to hold it for 10 years in order to sell it later. They need a place to park some money so that they can, use it as a tax shelter, whatever. So this is like the investment level. All of these things are all coming together. It accounts for about 27% of the sales over the last 5 years. And I told you what's influencing it. It's everything. 120% growth in the price per acre in the last 5 years, which is huge. It's the biggest appreciation of all three market segments, but the crazy part about it is incredibly volatile. And a lot of that volatility comes from one other influence that I haven't mentioned, which is development. So, you're not going to take 5 acres and make a big subdivision. You need a lot of space to make a subdivision. You need a lot of approval. And so where a lot of this premium market lives, like Bourbon County, Scott County, Jessamine County, some of these counties have stricter and sort of moving targets on how zoning is working and how a county's residents want zoning to work. So where you may have thought last year, I can get that 100 acres and then I can split it up and turn it into stuff. Well, sometimes the powers that be beat people to that idea. And suddenly that 100 acres or whatever I said just now, you can't split it up anymore. And so it doesn't carry the same potential return on investment that it may have when you bought it. So that's part of where the volatility comes from. And then the other part just comes from, what affects wealthy people's money. A lot of this stuff is purchased not as a primary residence or to put a primary residence on, or to put, horses on year round. This is stuff that's being used seasonally by people that have a lot of means. And so depending on how the market's doing and where these people have their money, they may or not finance in these special ways or have access to that financing because the market has plummeted or consumer confidence has plummeted or certain stocks have plummeted or things are just too shaky to use disposable income in such a way to purchase $150 and then stick millions of dollars into it to store your horses for 3 months out of the year or something. So it's sort of two-sided. It's a development issue on acreage this big, and then it's also what may influence a person of certain means to say, I'm going to invest this much money and feel really good about it and think that it's a good idea, as opposed to parking my money in some other way or investing it in some other way. That's where a lot of the volatility comes in. Okay, so now I just want to go over some big patterns, some trends, and some projections. And this is the part to remember again, that just because I'm saying this doesn't mean that it's right for you. You really need to filter this information through your own personal financial situation, your own personal circumstances in life. Like, the information is true, but how it's applied to each individual is going to be wildly different. So do not take this information and run. Take this information to people like myself, real estate people and financial advisors, and say, how can I take advantage of these types of things, as opposed to, I'm going to make a decision today to go buy something that maybe you have no business buying. So all that said, let's just start with some key trends by year, just so you can kind of get where we are big picture wise. 2022 was like a peak growth. It's post-ish COVID. There were still like restrictions, but like I think we had a vaccine by then, / people were just sort of like, okay, like they're making more decisions for themselves. So 2022 is like, whoa, we've got peak pricing, like interest rates are insane, like low, whatever. So stuff's going crazy seller's market. 2023, you see a little bit of like growth in the large parcel world, but the small and the medium parcels have sort of cooled. And I noticed that particularly in just that there was less inventory in that middle market in general. And the stuff that was on, people were still trying to capitalize on 2022. And I'm like, this piece of property is not worth what you have it priced for. And a lot of it expired. A lot of it never got sold. 2023 was really interesting in land, at least. 2024 is where you get some price stabilization. And there's a little bit of recovery on stuff coming back on the market, which again is kind of in line with the stuff that I was seeing. Not like I was a clairvoyant, but literally as I was studying the market, I was like, oh wow, like we have like good land, or at least land that's priced correctly, back on the market. And there's a little bit more of it than there was last year. And then 2025, obviously we're not finished with this particular year, but dang, we're 3/4 of the way through. We're seeing a market correction, and there could be some opportunities, which we'll get to. So that's the trends by year. Like that's kind of the path that we have taken to get here. Key trends by season. So June to August, that's your biggest selling time. That's where the most sales are happening every single year in this market that all this information is coming from, these 16 counties. March to May is like the second most busy time, whereas winter is just, it's dead. Obviously there are sales going on, but like June is the peak of the sale season for land. And then January is like the drought, like nothing's happening. Curiously enough, you'll get better prices on surveys when there aren't leaves on trees, and we have a lot of trees. So January is kind of it's interesting. Where we are today, before we look ahead, we're basically like we're sort of in a transition. And so nothing, like we're stabilizing, like actively. We have not stabilized, but we are stabilizing. And so in that transition, there's chaos. you get lucky. There's some opportunities to take advantage of, but like we're still trying to like find a new normal basically. And then so far, especially knowing now that our biggest sales period has essentially passed, 2025 so far, year to date, there's about a 13% price decline and a 32% volume reduction. And I mean, it's been a crazy year. Like, it doesn't matter what political side you're on. If you have any wealth, like, you've seen the stock market shoot up, you've seen it go down. Like, we've just been very up and down. That's just an objective truth. You can't argue, but you'd be wrong if you did. So uncertainty is the bedrock of a lot of the real estate market, whether we're talking land or something as essential as residential sales. Like, people are just not sure. And so sales have slowed. There's more time on market. There are more price reductions. People are deciding not to sell. That's what we're currently in the middle of. So we're trying to find a new normal. However, looking ahead, 2026, the trends, what's in this book, the data that this book is based off of, that I'm now doing a snapshot of, would say that we get a moderate recovery in 2026. I hope to God that's true. 2027, steady growth resumption. Really been I like that word a lot, but resumption is like the start of something again, like a restart. So recovery next year, 2027, like nothing ever moves like in a straight line. Like you're moving, you get little dips. Like overall, we're trying to go up, right? Especially for sellers, but we're trying to appreciate. So we're kind of recovering. We're on like this little down. Then we hit a bottom line. Like that's the recovery. Like we've hit the bottom so that we can bounce. The bounce is the resumption in 2027. That's what the stats say. But again, who knows what's going to happen? But this is the best swing at all of it. If we break down looking ahead into market segments, the 5 to 20 acre range, as you might expect, is slated to have the biggest growth. What does this say? What did I write? I might need to change the font on this booklet because it's small even when it's zoomed in. 26% appreciation by 2027 is what is expected. For the 20 to 50 market segment, the stable middle market, steady growth of about 13% by 2027. And then the 50 plus acre market segment, that premium market segment, is looking like it could be pretty flat and maybe some moderate growth by 2027. Now, what does this mean you might be able to do? Notice I said might. Again, I'm going to keep saying that you need to pass all of this information through your personal circumstances. Do not go out and do something just because you heard a percent or some sort of like line of data that I have spit out. So please talk to your money people, talk to your spouses. We do not need angry husbands or wives, and certainly not at me. And talk to your real estate advisors. So potential action that could be taken. If you're a buyer, your best opportunities are going to be in the wintertime because there just aren't as many things. There aren't as many buyers out there. There's not as much activity. So, if someone doesn't have the luxury of time and they're trying to sell, for instance, then as a buyer, you could hypothetically capitalize on that. And usually that looks to be about a 10 to 15% negotiating leverage for it, like in favor of a buyer. It all depends on how the property is priced though, right? Everything's case by case. If you're selling, April to June is your best time. I mean, June is like peak time, but given that land, depending on the market segment especially, it stays on the market for a while. So you don't want to necessarily put something that's 63 acres on in at the end of June, right? Because you need a little bit of time for people to see it. You need some time for people to chew on it. Like, people don't usually make those types of decisions at those price points super fast. So yeah, April to June is like best exposure time. June is obviously the peak time where the most transactions are happening, but you need a little bit of lead up for people to sort of like warm up. Because again, most of this stuff is not stuff that people need. Land, in a lot of cases, especially if it's non-agricultural, this is disposable income. This is like recreation. It'd be nice to have a second house. Like, this isn't essential. So sometimes people are slower to move or to make a decision. And then the other thing is just that there's some alignment in the agricultural cycles, and there are many. There's the cattle cycle. Kentucky is still like one of the largest cattle producers east of the Mississippi, I think second or third, depending on the year. And so, if you've got a bunch of cows that are calving and stuff, and you're trying to get weight up and all those types of things, like, farmers aren't selling this stuff, even though they plan on selling. Timing is very essential, depending on the size of that property, right? Like, you're not having a cattle operation on 5 acres. So an ag cycle won't really matter on a 5-acre property. But, the bigger you get, these things matter. Same thing with horses. When horses are foaling and what have you. So depending on what market segment you're in, you're going to want to pay attention to what may be happening on parcels that size, because it could affect, how motivated a seller is to take an offer, especially if it's an unsolicited one. You may have to pay a lot more money for them to pick up a bunch of horses and cattle and get them off of a property. Whereas if there's not that much activity going on, it's a little bit of it's not as heavy of a lift for that seller to get all their stuff gone. Again, case by case. Not everybody has cattle, not everybody has horses, but this is more for you to keep in the back of your mind for whatever you encounter. And then some potential investment grade counties. I'm reading right from my book. On the conservative end, if you're, a conservative investor, or what I like to call gambling, if you're on the conservative end of trying to get a return on investment, you might want to look at Harrison, Mercer, and Anderson counties. They consistently have a good amount of inventory, and the land appreciates at a pretty moderate pace. We've talked about Harrison a lot. You should watch my other videos. If you're looking for a balanced type of approach, Madison, Franklin, and Garrett are good places to be. They're all undergirded either by like government influence, like state government stuff, like Franklin County is where our capital is, or they've got like universities there, and that keeps a lot of economic activity and what's that word? A decent amount of growth. People need houses because they're working for university, and university expands over a couple years, and then you have more employees at the university, and you need more house, like all that stuff. And then if you're looking for like some crazy growth, it's going to cost you, but some crazy growth. We've talked about these counties before. Premium appreciation, but very, very volatile. You'd be looking at Scott, Bourbon, and just in case my recording cut out before I just said what I said, you would be looking at Scott, Bourbon, and Jessamine counties for that like high risk, high reward type of situation. With all that said, I'll make an announcement on here. It's not ready yet, but when it is, I'll make an announcement here on YouTube that this snapshot booklet is ready. It looks cool, I think. I think a lot of visual stuff I do looks cool. I just like putting things together. I think I designed like the majority of my tattoos. I love doodling and designing, but it's easy. It's 8 pages. One of the pages is a cover. The other page actually is just information about my brokerage and me. So it's really 6 pages of information, very palatable, very straightforward, not very deep, but I think still insightful and hopefully helpful for whoever's reading it. So I'll make a whole stink about this snapshot being electronically available. You just click on a link and it'll look like an electronic book, like the pages flip and everything. This is a little bit more coveted and will not be available anytime super soon, like on a massive level. But I want to share a little bit. I share a lot actually, but in this particular situation, I want to share a little bit and make sure that there's something out there that you can get your teeth into and to kind of help you figure out what direction you may want to go. Is the camera still running? It is. My phone just said that the connection was lost. I think that's it. And then we'll go back to some more like Lane stories. I've got some that I have not even put out yet. So thank you for watching. I hope this is helpful, and adios.